با سلام، شایان هستم از گروه بلک متال فارسی ترایوکس و از جمله پادکست ابلیس منیفستیشنز. این ویدیویی که به زودی خواهید دید بخشی از مکالمه من با سیلنوز، گیتاریست و آهنگساز گروه نروژی دیمو بورگیر هست. در این صحبت ما راجع به همکاری دیمو بورگیر با سمفونی به صورت اجرای زنده در سال 2011 و 12 انجام دادیم که وارد دیتیل موضوع شدیم و اینکه چطوری بود برای اونا که بخوان با یک سمفونی اجرای زنده بدن. به علاوه بر این ما راجع به ارزش هنر صحبت کردیم و اینکه موسیقی رو، مخصوصا موسیقی متال رو، به عنوان هنر بهش نگاه بکنیم تا چیزی که بخواد عامه پسند باشه و ما برای لذت بردن مردم بخوایم این موزیک رو تأسیس کنیم. امیدوارم که از این صحبت ما روی کانال پرشین راکستار لذت ببریم. درود.
You know, you don't think of like, oh, let's get famous or do this and that. I think every band pretty much from back in the day, no one thinks like that. That's not the aim, you know. So when you start with nothing, then it's easier to appreciate everything when it comes later on.
Absolutely. And you know what? I agree with you. And I think that's the recipe for how quality is born. Because if you're starting out just because, you know, especially nowadays, you know, it's like all that you would see is, let's say, number of streams, number of plays and views. Like I literally had this conversation with one of my guys last night because we released this music video that obviously seemed to do quite okay. You know, for us, it did really well. But then, and then we were talking about how, oh, you know, if we release another one, is that going to do as well? And then I said, but we're not releasing shit for views. We're releasing it because it's a piece of art and it's the message that we want to send. You know, if it's for views, then I don't know, go make some TikTok videos, you know, where you're like smacking eggs over your head or some stupid shit, you know. You know, it's like, you know, that's and I think that's the intent, you know, it's that it's the art that comes first, you know, same as I believe I actually heard you say this as well about the Aeonian, your last record, that to you the success was just handing the master to the label rather than, you know, how it was then responded to afterwards and whatnot, you know. And I think that's really what it's about, you know. It's about the art itself, you know. It's being able to successfully express yourself. That's the success. Now whatever comes after is kind of like a bonus, really.
That's how I always looked at it. And also being in an environment where you don't do any compromises. Although I'm sure a lot of people out there think that, oh, since we signed to a bigger label, we had to do compromises. No, we just laid down the law right away. You know, it's like, yeah, it might take a few years before you get the new album, but they know that once that album is done, they got a great product to work with, you know. So we never got told that, oh, you have to do it within this and this time, although they obviously want us to release albums a bit sooner than 8 years in between each one, but you know, it is what it is. And I think we could have easily kind of sold out and done another Enthroned Darkness triumphant, you know, pretty easily. But what would be the point? You would have one album competing with one of the albums that got a lot of fans into us in the first place, and then that wouldn't be any special anymore. And plus, people would then say, well, it just sounds like Enthroned Darkness triumphant, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You can't win with people. That's why you have to win with yourself, and that's what I meant with when we hand over the master. That means that it's a success process already, no matter what people will say, because we are happy with it. We are done with it. And then it's out of our hands. It's out of our control. And then it lives its own life, you know, and it's going to live its own life after we're done. So, you know,
absolutely.
That's how it is.
Yeah, man. Listen, you can't do anything in life with that mindset of trying to please people, but especially when it comes to art, you know, and the whole thing of, you know, deadlines and times and things like that. At times, perhaps there is a value to that as well, but purely from a creative perspective, especially when you've already released so many albums, when you've already gone and performed live with an orchestra, which I guess was a goal and an aim for many years prior to that. When you've already done all these things, you kind of don't have to succumb to the perhaps the industrial side of things as much. And I think that's kind of what makes it valuable. You know, that's why when I listen to your last record, or pretty much like any of the last few records, I like the feeling that I get from it, because I can tell that there's a lot of attention, there's a lot of sort of delicate details that are within each song, you know. And also, the whole idea that there's an industry around art is kind of like a bizarre thing to me as well. Like it's fucking awesome to be able to make a living out of doing what you want to do, but art is not something that really conforms to the reality of the world as easily, you know. And it's the idea that this is one of my favorite sayings. It's that art is like a fart. If you force it, it's probably shit.
That's a good one. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I mean, when you write a song, it could take 1 week, could take 2 hours, it could take 2 months, whatever it takes to finish that song and that album. And it's done when it's done. And that's the good thing about it. Obviously, being in a band for so many years, and you can totally focus on the art. You know, there was a time in our history where we had to take some day jobs on the side, which is fine because we all come from the working class environment. So for us to get our hands dirty is nothing new, you know, it's not a big deal. But I remember then it took us a bit longer to get into the atmospheric mode of creative mode, you know. And no matter if you work on the side, like with a regular so-called job or not, you cannot push the button on and off, you know, like, I'm going to be creative today, so that's not how it works, you know. So and obviously getting older, you get kids, and there's other things in life that you need focus on, but we have never compromised. And we have you know, I usually say that if you want to sacrifice something, you need to sacrifice something of value, not something that you don't need, right? You need to.
Yes.
So we have sacrificed when it comes to, obviously, family, mental and physical health. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we have just sacrificed because our focus has been straight on the job. I wouldn't call it a job, because it's something that's invigorating to do, something you look forward to do. A job for me has a negative connotation anyway. So, but I'm really, really proud that we have never wavered in our focus. You know, taking some time between some of the albums, sure, but we've done it on our own, you know, and no one is ever going to get to tell us what to do and what not to do. And we figured out that pretty early in the start of the band, you know, that when we got a lot of flack for taking the keyboard thing a bit further, but you know, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to use the keyboards as a writing tool as well, you know. And that's the link to, we're not going to compare ourselves with Deep Purple, obviously, but they also have used keyboards as a writing tool, you know. So you have
absolutely,
you have that kind of link. And so this, you know, we've done everything on our terms and then some, you know. And I also say that it's not about being in the right place at the right time. Once, you have to be in the right place at the right time all the time, and that includes a lot of sacrifice. And it might sound really egotistical to say this, but I would probably do it again, you know. I would do it again.
Listen, man, I absolutely love that. That's powerful, because, you know, like, to someone else listening to this, they might think, oh yeah, they did things on their own terms for 30 years. But you don't really realize what that actually takes. And when you're talking about sacrifice, other than the term being used for one of the best Bathory songs of all time, it is one of the most important things, you know. And it comes down to the Saturnalian nature of the world that we live in, you know. And a lot of times, well, all the time, there's never a straight solution within life. There are only trade-offs. And I think you make a very valuable point saying that when you want to sacrifice something, it has to be sacrificing something that is of value. And I totally agree with that. It's almost like a lot of times the universe is listening back to you. You know, it's like you make deals with it. You say, hey, I'm going to do this in exchange for that. And then you go through the process. Sometimes when people chase something, they forget that the shit that they're experiencing is something that they asked for, and they complain too much, not realizing it's all a part of the contract. But you sometimes just gotta go head first through the shit, and then on the other side of it, you'll see and get exactly the thing that you asked for. Do you relate to that in any ways?
Absolutely. And if we go back to the oldest civilizations, you know, they worshipped and gave sacrifices of something that was of value to receive something. They didn't expect to receive first and then give. You have to give first to receive, right? And that's what you said about you throwing something out there and then the reciprocates, you know, and that's how it is. You know, you with every ritual, the intent should be the focus. Otherwise, if you're too out there, then it's just going to make it probably worse, more chaotic. So you have to have intent, and that will pay off sooner or later. But as I said, it's not enough to rest on your laurels after being in the right place at the right time once. You have to be there continuously. You know, that's how it is.
It's the idea that you can fall in and out of enlightenment. That once you reach it once, you're not there forever. You have to keep on top of it. You
have to keep working at it, and it's not getting easier. It's just getting harder and harder and harder. That's what people don't get, you know.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process. It's not like, oh, now I'm there. You know, no. That's how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the reasons why I've come to very much appreciate the well, obviously for like the last 5 or 6 years, you know, I have been training rigorously, you know, every single week, you know, 4 or 5 times a week. I have to do it. And one of the things for it is that, you know, like it's taught me a lot about just the philosophy of life doing that. Because, you know, it's when you realize that life is about putting in the reps. It's all about the repetition of something, you know, that it's about putting in the work. Like you can have the best visions, you can have the best ideas, but unless you put in the work, those ideas don't mean jack shit. And I think that that's exactly where it's one of the biggest lessons I think I actually took away from it, you know. But I think it's probably one thing that I can definitely admire about what you guys are. There are many things, by the way, that I admire about what yourself and your band have done as artists. First and foremost, like I said, there's the industry aspect of things, and yeah, the band is popular, but let's bring it back to the core, which is the fact that you're artists. When I look at, just as an example, the whole symphony thing that you guys did, you know, like the idea of a symphony is a philosophically challenging thing to me in a very positive way, in that when you're writing a song, you can write just a series of single notes on one instrument, and that can be a song of its own. But what a symphony is 80 of those different layers and all of it put together, all different sounds, all serving a specific purpose, you know, and to go through the logistics of that and to go through the pain of it, the hassle, the arrangements, making sure everyone is together. I can only imagine how difficult that must have been to do, but also how rewarding it must have truly been to stand on stage alongside that and perform that to your own audience, knowing that you're basically sticking your flag into the ground at that moment in time and space. It's quite a powerful thing, isn't it?
It is. It's, as you say, it's really rewarding. And when you, to me, it's like I love making songs and creating and performing it in the studio, but to be able to play it live and perform it in front of people, that's like the cream of the cake, you know. And to be able to share that energy and your work that you have put in, and you share that with the audience. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it is. It's true, you know. It's and you know, some days on stage, you might not have your best day, but it's still that interaction that keeps the motivation going, you know, and to be able to share it with share your work with people that really are into what you do, and you kind of have that two-way energy exchange, you know. I call it universal exchange, for lack of a better word, but yeah. So that's amazing, and to also be able to do two shows, one festival show and one proper indoor show with orchestra. That was like amazing, because the way I see it is like Dimmu's music has kind of like a perfection side to it, which is like, yeah, you're on album and studio, that's like the perfect side of the band, but then live is the more straight to the meat and potatoes type of punkish thing, you know, like you're out there without the parachute, and what can go wrong could go wrong, you never know. It's like, so to be able to do that orchestra show in Oslo in 2011 and everything went perfectly, you know. I think the only thing that was fucking up was one black screen somewhere in the trailer, you know. So, but apart from that, it went really, really great. And then 1 year later, you're going to perform the same thing with a different orchestra at Wacken in front of 80,000 people or whatever. And you have 45 minutes changeover to mic up 100 people on stage, you know. It's